Welcome to the Best Kept Secrets podcast. This time I have a dream guest, Dr. Richard Hansen, archaeologist, explorer, the modern Indiana Jones, who has dedicated his life to uncovering the secrets of the ancient Maya. Today, we travel deep into the tropical rainforest of northern Guatemala, directly to the Mirador Basin project. Hidden beneath the jungle canopy lie one of the most or the largest, I would say some of the largest and most astonishing architectural achievements ever built by human hands. Dr. Richard Hansen is an explorer and he's a leading scientist, and he has revealed hundreds of previously unknown settlements. So, Dr. Richard Hansen, welcome to the Best Kept Secrets podcast.
Thank you, Vila. Great to be here. Thank you for your time and patience. And glad we have technical difficulties out of the way, and good to be with you. Thank you.
I am so glad to see you again. All right. So, after more than 40 years working in the Mirador Basin, what discovery gives you the goosebumps today?
Boy, Vila, every time I go out there, I get goosebumps simply because these are the largest and earliest ancient Maya cities that we know. These are concentrated in this area. It's one of the most fascinating stories of humanity we've ever seen. And these concentrations of large and early cities are found in this defined geological system, and which makes it even more fascinating to find a human story that we've never seen before. And it's all buried by jungle. There's no people that live out there. Not one person lives in this entire area. 1.6 million acres of tropical jungle that doesn't have anybody living in it. But now that we have with technologies that we'll talk about a little bit later, I'm sure, we've now revealed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of ancient cities that are concentrated in this area. And some of these are the largest ancient cities in the entire Western Hemisphere.
And you believe it? Wow, it's amazing. Okay,
as a result, it gives us an insight into the human story we've never seen before.
And the inhabitants are the holler monkeys and the parrots, and that's a big family you have in there. Okay, so the first time you got there, you saw the site. What made you think that it was going to be something so spectacular?
Well, again, we didn't know this. We didn't know. First of all, I was working in Israel and had an invitation from Dr. Bruce Dallin of Catholic University and Dr. Ray Matheny of Brigham Young University to come and look at a site called Mirador. I was going to Bolivia. I have received an invitation from the government of Bolivia to work at a site called Tiwanaku in the Altiplano of Bolivia. But when I got the chance to go to a tropical jungle, that is Indiana Jones stuff, right? So I thought I'd like to look at this. But when we went in there in 1978, it was when we discovered the antiquity of the city. It was much earlier than all of the other Maya cities we knew of. We're looking at 1,000 to 2,000 years older than sites like Palenque or Tikal or Copan or Chichen Itza. These are this concentration of large and early cities were a whole new story of humanity that we'd never seen before.
Yeah. So Richard Hansen is a world-class archaeologist. That I can tell you. I've seen him work, and he is like an Indiana Jones for sure. It's incredible. But you know something? When
my life isn't as boring as Indiana Jones. He jumps out of the airplane before it crashes, and I stay on it until it does crash.
That's true. Okay, so when you saw La Danta, tell us about La Danta.
Well, La Danta is one of the most interesting structures we have. It's we know from the work of Takeshi Inomate in the western part of Tabasco that the early Maya were interested in monumentality. And this is represented as well in the Pyramid of Danta. This structure is a series of consecutive platforms that goes from 600 meters by 300 meters, or 650 yards by 320 yards at the base, and up to 72 meters high, or 74 or 75 yards high. The original structure was probably 80 meters or more in height, but somebody destroyed the building in antiquity on the very summit. Enemies or somebody destroyed that building at the very summit. So all we have is the platform floor of that upper building. But this is the largest ancient structure we have in the Western Hemisphere in terms of volume. 2.8 million cubic meters of fill
Wow.
that were hauled in without carts, without chariots, without wagons, without beasts of burden, without horses, without oxen. This was all human labor, which makes this a fascinating insight into human behavior. What kind of leadership did it take to marshal that kind of labor to make that happen, especially in hot, tropical, humid sun, you know? How do you get that kind of response from people? How do you get that? How do you control those kind of masses? And how do you get, what is the objective of these incredible facilities? Now, when you look at the world scale, we see that human behavior elsewhere. When you look at the earliest manifestations of complex societies throughout the world, the Egyptians, the Babylonians, the early societies of South America, it's monumentality. They focus on monumentality. The largest pyramids of Egypt were not constructed later on in their great glorious days. They were constructed in the earliest part of their civilizations.
But it's weird,
Chaos.
that all these different civilizations had pyramids, built almost the same way. It's really amazing.
Well, except that the Egyptian pyramids are funerary, and these pyramids in the Western Hemisphere are functional. They're like cathedrals in medieval Europe, you know.
Different purpose.
Yeah, the purpose and mostly ideological, political, religious, economic ideologies that mandate the construction of these enormous pyramids.
And how many people did it take to build one of them? Like Danta, how many people do you think worked on it?
Well, we've actually did the experimental work to determine that. We excavated 6 quarries, recovered stone tools that we found in the quarries, and replicated those tools. And then we cut stone blocks with those tools so that we could calculate how many man days of labor does it take to make one preclassic block? And then we transported the blocks. So we knew how much time it took to transport a 1,200 pound or a 1,500 pound or a 2,000 pound stone from a quarry 600 meters away. And then we calculated how much mortar it takes. And we calculated the use, how you make the stucco to cover it. How much wood does it take to make lime cement? We did all that experimental work. The result is that we figure it takes about 10 to 12 million man days of
Really?
labor. Million
Oh,
man days of labor.
oh,
And if you really want to stretch it, 15 million man days of labor to build one building.
oh,
Now,
wow.
if one man was working, how many years would that be? Do you know?
Tell me.
41,000 years. That's that's 15 million man days of labor. So then we do the math. Well, it looks like Danta was built during the one particular kingship because the stonework is the same from the bottom of the pyramid all the way to the top.
Okay, so
It,
how long did it take?
well, we figure about 30 years. If a king was governing about 30 years, probably took 30 years, but it would require between 3 and 4,000 workmen working every day for 30 years to build that building.
I remember when visiting Mirador, and you took me in this kind of like a golf cart, right? And we're
Right.
traveling and traveling, and I go, so when are we gonna get there? And you said, we're already here. What? You mean this is already the pyramid? I said, yep. Oh my gosh, it's not ending. But
Yeah.
I want to know something important. For example, what do people expect to find inside the pyramids?
Well, keep in mind, in the classic period, these buildings did convert to funerary monuments, but we have yet to find a single royal burial inside these big pyramids. And believe me, we've looked. We've looked in all the places that you would find a burial if it was classic period.
Mm.
So we know they're buried somewhere, and we know they're buried lavishly. I mean, they weren't putting the guy that built Dante in a latrine somewhere. You know, they he's buried in Roy. I mean, Ramsey. Look at Ramses and Cheops
Yeah,
of Egypt. These guys were the big guys. King Tut was a minnow.
yeah,
He was a minnow compared to the big guys.
yeah,
And look what lavish material he had in his tomb,
yeah.
So it's a tragic story that we lost Ramses and Cheops tombs to looters. But we do know that these kings that built these big, huge cities weren't buried in the place where they would normally be in the classic period. And we have yet to find them. I'm using all kinds of new technology now to try to see if we can find one of these. One of the clues we have to these societies is a series of 19 kings recorded on codex style pottery, which is only found in the Mirador Basin, that was painted between 680 AD and 740 AD, in the classic period. These 19 kings don't exist in any of the king lists in the classic period, and the dates certainly don't match. So we're convinced that these are retrospective histories of earlier kings.
That's a,
Stanley Gunter, one of my great epigraphers,
oh, I know that.
um,
I know
yeah,
Stanley. Yeah.
Stan did the math on this, and we've determined that these kings are a list of kings that were pre-classic kings
Hmm.
beginning in 392 BC.
Hmm.
And the last recorded king, the 19th king, came to power about 20 AD, 20 years after Christ.
No.
Now, if that model, and all I need is one of those burials to know that that list is not mythical, that it's not a King Arthur type of mythology that transmits down. If I had one of those burials, then we would know that that list is legitimate, and that's interesting to us. We're not looking for goodies, but we are looking to understand the role and place of certain kings
I'll go
from
and
this
help you.
dynastic sequence.
I look for it. No, what about the artifacts? What artifact really resonates with your the image of finding something spectacular?
Well, we found jade masks and at Tintal, we found monuments and sculpture and stele and masks and painted art and we found incredible artifact. We found a building with 68 stucco heads that
Oh,
were
yes, the
life-size
colors, right?
heads.
Different
Oh
colors.
yeah, with all the colors on it.
I remember
We
seeing.
have found this, but the most interesting thing to me were simply fragments of pottery
Hmm.
on a floor on the structure 34 at Mirador. And the reason that's so important is because that was the first clue that we had that these cities were centuries earlier than what we thought was possible. That was the first indication we have of a huge pre-classic presence, centuries, 1,000 years earlier than Tikal.
Oh, yeah.
And that gives me the most of all the artifacts we've found. That to me is the most interesting
And you know the
because
decline.
it changed Maya history.
And you know the decline? I think you said to me once that they had found like a table that was set and
Oh
not
yeah.
anymore. Like they
Oh,
were ready to eat or something, and all of a sudden, whoop, disappeared.
by
What?
150 AD, these cities were entirely abandoned. And when they left all the pottery still sitting right on the floors where they were using it last.
That
What's interesting about that, nobody came back 200 years later and said, "Oh, look at this old pot. I'm going to take it home and put it on the mantle." They left and they didn't come back for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of
here that
years.
they left all the pottery and like they were ready to eat, and all of a sudden they were not there anymore. I mean,
Right.
really,
That's right.
that's a mystery, you know.
And not only at Mirador and all the other cities that we've been investigating so far, we've worked now in 56 cities in the basin with test pits and mapping and exploration. And with the LIDAR, which is a new technology that we pioneered in Guatemala,
Right.
we found 964 archaeological sites that form 417 ancient cities, towns, and villages. And these are all pre-classic
New,
cities.
right? This is a new discovery with
Yeah,
LIDAR.
that's right. Yeah.
Oh,
So these are pre-classic cities that are concentrated in this basin. We don't find them so abundantly outside the basin. On the outside, there's no cities, but
mhm.
boy, inside they're concentrated there, and that makes that story of humanity unique in helping understand a new page of humanity that we've never known before.
Talk to me about the causeways. Nakbe. How do they call them? The
Sac Bay.
Sakbe. Sakbe. Tell me about that.
Sac Bay this is another fascinating thing about the Mirador Basin. We happen to have the largest and earliest highway system in the world. Now, by largest, I mean they don't match the 3,000 miles of the Inca highways, but these causeways are 40 to 50 yards wide and 2 to 5 yards high. They're elevated.
Highways.
Yeah,
That's
they're
big.
incredible. It's the first freeway system in the world, and all for foot labor. There are foot traffic. It wasn't for carts or beasts of burden. It was all human traffic. But that shows the density of populations out there. We have 177 kilometers of pre-classic causeways in the basin. And what's interesting is not one of those causeways goes outside the borders of the basin. This basin is surrounded by a ridge of karstic hills, mountains that are a range of mountains that completely surround it on all sides. And they're about 200 to 300 meters high. But none of these causeways go outside the borders of that basin.
Which
And
cities do they connect?
well, what they do, they connected all these cities together in
How
a
many?
complex web of interaction, economic, social, and political interactions between all of these cities in forming what we think is one of the early states of the Western Hemisphere.
Oh gosh, but I keep on thinking, okay, 20 million people lived around there. Is that true? Or am I?
Well, it's possible. We know that we can at least say there were probably millions in the basin in the pre-classic.
Hmm.
When it takes 3 to 4,000 men just to build one pyramid, and there are 10,000 buildings that are contemporaneous, then you can see the amount of labor and the that's being developed there. Plus, you have to water them, you have to feed them, you have to entertain them, you have to police
Organization.
them. You
Wow.
have to have all of the systems of complexity to maintain that type of labor investment.
Because before,
And as a result, it's a tremendous story.
because before they thought there were less millions living there, right? It's through the lighter technology, they found that it was much more the density of the population. Is that correct?
Well, that's true. And we're the ones that first did the contiguous study of the whole area. We did the entire, not just individual sites. There were other projects that were doing individual sites, but we did the whole area, which gave us that vision of all the causeways, all the linkage between these cities, how they compared one to another, and how they interacted one with another. And then we know also by our extensive work of 47 years in the basin that these cities are contemporaneous. In outside the area, you have a bunch of buildings they found. Well, some are pre-classic, some are late classic, some are post-classic, meaning that there's maybe 1,000 to 2,000 years difference in time, and you can't really estimate those populations without by just looking at the buildings and counting them. The other thing that we've discovered that's really unique is we discovered what we call a hidden housebound phenomenon, meaning invisible houses. There's vast areas of cities which are plain with no architecture. But when you dig down 10 centimeters, you find packed earthen floors with post holes and pottery.
Oh,
So these are what we know is these were densely populated centers. We have no surface indication now whatsoever because they were perishable superstructures. They were perishable houses made of palm thatch and wood.
No
And as a
wonder.
result, there's no surface indication now of their presence.
No
Now
wonder.
that we've discovered that, we're trying to develop the algorithms now that will allow us to make a more reliable population estimate. But we can't do that yet. We're still doing large horizontal excavations so we can determine the concentration of densities of these hidden house mounds so that we can start making population estimates that are more reliable.
And Richard, could LIDAR still reveal entirely new cities in the ancient Maya, you think?
Well, we did. We found 417 of them
More.
that nobody knew. Yeah, of course. Now
Hmm.
that we've got the LIDAR, where we have 100% of every single pyramid, every single causeway, every single wall, every single dam, every single canal. We have all that now, which gives us a whole new perspective of this civilization, and it's actually a godsend. This technology was first used by Arlen and Diane Chase in the site of Caracol in Belize. It's a military technology, and they used it there. And when I saw the incredible results that they were having there, I realized that we had to do the same thing in the Mirador Basin. We knew there were huge in concentration of cities out there, but how you map those on in a jungle is so complicated and so difficult and so dangerous, actually. So the LIDAR now has opened up that whole story, and we're able now to see and understand the network of ancient cities that were booming hundreds or thousands of years before the Christian era. And it gives us a chance to understand that incredible development and how societies become complex. What are the processes that maintain that complexity? And what are the factors that lead to their demographic demise? And those are issues that we're currently working on now to understand that whole story. We can't see our beginnings because that's before we were born. We only live in the present. We can't see our future because that's in the future. But through the lens of archaeology, we can see the whole story from the beginning to the end of a civilization. And that gives us a whole new perspective of the human saga, the whole new perspective of human behavior. What can we do to make a country prosper? What can we do to make a country maintain that prosperity? And what can we do to make a country collapse? And these are things that modern governments need to pay attention to because there are secrets there that are universal.
I
There,
agree.
there are there is information there that can be applied today as well as was 2,000 years
I
ago.
agree with you totally. Yes, yes. Okay, what single question keeps you awake at night still about the Maya? One single question.
Let's see. I would say that's a great question. I would say if I had to one single question, how do they maintain control of vast populations?
Okay.
Was it a military control? How do they coerce hundreds and thousands of people to move rock and stone to build these big buildings? What were the factors that led that? Was it an ideological belief? Was it a belief in God? When you look at, in Europe, I was just in Spain recently and looked at the large structures in Toledo or Madrid or Segovia, and you go to Notre Dame in Paris, you see these and St. Peter's Basilica in Rome, this effort to build these incredible constructions um, in constant in
Beautiful.
what is it that inspires people to do this? Is it the belief in gods? Is it the belief in their kings? Is it the belief in the political system? Are they militarily coerced to do it? Are they forced to do it or die? What were the factors that led to this kind of human behavior, and how can modern governments learn from that?
Yeah, it's amazing, how did the Maya support millions of people in the middle of the rainforest. But I'm thinking about water management. How did water management play in their success, you think?
Well, first of all, there's no rivers or lakes in the basin. It's zero. The question is, why didn't they build these huge, magnificent ancient cities at the edge of Lake Patenitsa? That's
Yeah.
a beautiful lake in near Tikal. It's 24 miles long. It has all the fresh water you could want. It has fish. It has the muchachas swimming in the afternoon in the water. You have a nice breeze in the evening. I mean, why aren't these cities concentrated on the edge of that lake?
Yes.
Hmm? They're
Really?
the most distant location from a river or a lake or the ocean you
Yeah.
can possibly be. You can possibly be.
Mm.
So uh, the question is why?
Yeah.
Well, the reason is when there's no water there, they had to develop complexity because there was no water. We've got to organize, muchachos, we have to organize ourselves or we're going to die of thirst.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
So that's the beginnings of government. You
Mm.
form an administrative committee to start developing the processes of government so that you can be able to survive these kinds of things. We know it was the swamps that brought them there originally. The swamps, and is the secret to their economic um,
Success?
superiority was the mud from
And
those swamps. They were hauling the mud from those swamps because it was rich organic mud and it gave them incredible agricultural capabilities. Now, by the same token, if we have no water, we have to pave our plazas with nice slime cement and design our buildings to capture water. So they were designing this water capture system very early in history, and they built reservoirs and dams and dikes and chinampas and all these elaborate agricultural systems and water collection systems as a direct manifestation of administrative control and administrative bureaucracy that formed governments, and it formed benefits for populations. It made them so they could survive in areas without rivers and lakes, and it made it so that they had the capability of creating some of the largest ancient structures in the world.
okay, talk to me about the decline. One reason, two reasons, many reasons? Why? What happened?
Well, to understand their decline, we have to understand the secret to their success. The secret to the success, as I said, was that organic mud. When we go out into the Bajos today and we dig down, we find that organic layer under 2 to 3 meters of sterile clay. What would have caused that kind of deposition? What would have caused that kind of sedimentation? Well, we begin to suspect the excessive use of resources, the conspicuous consumption of resources,
Mm.
and we suspected lime cement as the culprit. To make lime, and we did the experimental work for this as well. To make lime, for 6 years, I sent a team from Berkeley all over Mesoamerica, documenting how much wood does it take and how much limestone does it take, which you have to burn at 900 degrees centigrade temperature to convert limestone into quicklime. And then you mix water with that quicklime. It has a violent reaction, but then you can smooth it over buildings and plazas and pave causeways with this lime cement. Well, we saw through time the floors were getting thicker and thicker and thicker and thicker in time. And why? Because they could. They had the wealth, they had the power, they had the
Excesses.
control, you know. We
Excesses.
see we see the same thing in governments today.
Yes.
For example, in the US, we're $38.4 trillion in debt. Why?
Yeah.
Because we can.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
what we're not looking at the consequence of that kind of stupidity. And
Mm.
it is a stupidity.
It is.
What they did is they denuded their forests, the natural clays when they just cut down all their forest to make the lime plazas that were 50 centimeters thick. You don't need a floor 50 centimeters thick. You need a floor 4 centimeters thick. But
Yes.
they were building floors to 50 centimeters thick because
Just
they
because they
could.
could. Because they
Because they
probably
could.
wanted to prove that they were Prince was more powerful than his brother and things like that.
That's
That's
right.
a human behavior even now. And
That's right.
okay, we're running out of time, but I want to ask you a closing question. Hear me. Okay, after a lifetime spent uncovering the secrets of the Maya, what do you believe is the single greatest misconception the world still has about the Maya civilization?
All the great civilizations of the world were considered to be in the classics, Greeks, the Romans, the Babylonian, Mesopotamians. And for the most part, the Chinese or the Harappans were essentially ignored. And in the New World, these societies were not the classic Greek and Roman architecture that we see today throughout the world. In fact, the Spanish were astonished to see Tenochtitlan because there was nothing in Europe like those cities. Organized, lean, clean, beautiful constructions, magnificent palaces, zoos. They had all the trappings of complexity. Well, what we know now is that this is an opportunity now to reveal to the world that the Maya, in particular, are one of the five founding civilizations of the world. That means a society that not only builds monumentality, but it records its own history in writing. And there's only five civilizations that can do that. Nobody in North America can do that, did that. Nobody in South America did that. It's only in Mesoamerica where we have that capability of writing, which tells us then that these great civilizations of the New World do belong at the table of cultural complexity and the cultural table of world class civilizations. And that's the story that we hope to divulge to the world.
Well, I really think that the government of Guatemala should be helping you a lot more because you deserve it. Your work deserves it. And I just want to close also with this thought. Okay, the basin, hear me, the basin contains evidence of sophisticated water reservoirs, canals, agricultural, and urban planning for more than 2000, I mean, more than 2000 years ago. So keep that in mind, my viewers, whoever is listening. And your last thoughts, Richard, please, your last thoughts.
Well, the basin is severely threatened. We run the risk of losing everything now. Organized crime is laundering money with cattle herds. Cattle requires massive deforestation, and it's being threatened. If we don't develop the systems now to protect the basin, we will lose it forever. And once it's gone, we'll never ever recover it. There's a new initiative right now in the Guatemalan Congress to form a world-class wilderness cultural and natural sanctuary. I was astonished to see that the diputados of the government of Guatemala were doing something like this. This
Finally,
is a credit to them. Let's see that if it passes. I don't know where it's at. It's in committee right now. It's already been read the first time in the Congress. We'll see that it happens. But this will give the Guatemalans the fighting chance against organized crime to save one of the greatest cultural and natural treasures left in the world. This, by the way, this area is the last tropical forest left in all of Guatemala. There's no more. This is it. So if we lose this, they will lose the chance to remove. Well, I can say this: if we lose the basin, we'll never ever remove the poverty, the misery, the crime, the delinquency, the sadness and that occurs in this area today because of the poverty, extreme poverty there. The chance to develop these ancient cities as a tourism model will jumpstart Guatemala's economy for 500 years in the future. And if you don't believe me, look at Costa Rica, that has nothing and has four times the visitors, right? We
right.
can develop the models that will involve communities, that will involve the country in a magnificent development of cultural and economic fluorescence that they've never seen before. And this is the reason why we want to save and protect this basin and those ancient cities that are found in, so that the Guatemalans themselves can form a new cultural identity as being one of the world leaders of culture, one of the world centers of ancient societies. And they can live for the next 500 years by saving this area.
Richard, you know I'm a leader of opinion. I would like to help maybe writing articles in the newspaper of Guatemala so that people would really support you, especially the senators at Congress, and that law passes. Okay, I hope so. Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Linda. Thank you.
This has been an amazing interview with you, as always, because you are so passionate when you talk. You're so passionate. It's contagious. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Hey,
Eva. Great
and
to be with
please
you.
subscribe to our channel. This is subscribe to our podcast because it's something that you will enjoy every single week watching these wonderful podcasts. And today's is one special one. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you.